A tanker truck rolls on the interstate and 30,000 gallons of an unknown chemical starts spreading across 4 lanes. And you're the first person in a moon suit who's allowed to walk into that cloud. That's not a movie. That's a Tuesday for a hazmat technician. And the guy in the suit makes $20 an hour. Level 1, Hazmat Cleanup Technician. 19 years old, $20 an hour. Your first day, they hand you a Tyvek suit 2 sizes too big, a respirator you've never sealed tested, and point you toward a house where a hoarder died 3 weeks before anyone found him. You start with the jobs nobody else wants. Crawl spaces full of black mold, meth lab teardowns, crime scene cleanup, asbestos ripped out of 100-year-old schools. Nobody tells you the suit is the easy part. It's the air you can't trust that gets in your head, every single shift, whether the monitor says it's safe or not. Your first month, you rip your glove on a jagged edge of drywall in a lead paint teardown. Your supervisor doesn't yell. He just says, "Now you know why we double glove." You never forget it. Your crew lead watches how you seal a containment zone before he lets you near anything radioactive. The plastic sheeting, the negative air pressure, whether you check the manometer out of habit or because someone's standing over your shoulder. Chemical exposure is the single leading cause of long-term injury in this trade, and most of it doesn't happen in a dramatic spill. It happens in a torn glove nobody reported. The first time you work an actual chemical spill site, it's a diesel leak at a gas station, the small ones. Your supervisor double-checks every seal on your suit before you're even allowed near the tape line. Suit up, test the air, confirm the seal. Suit up, test the air, confirm the seal. Your body understands something your brain already knew, that the suit isn't a formality. It's the only thing standing between you and whatever's in that cloud. Your first real call-out alone, no supervisor standing over your shoulder, is a small propane leak behind a strip mall. It's nothing compared to what's coming, but your hands still shake putting on the suit, because nothing prepares you for the first time. It's just you and the tape line. Level 2, Certified Hazmat Technician, 23 years old, $32 an hour. Now you're certified for full hazmat response, chemical, biological, radiological. You go where the call sends you, and the call doesn't care what time it is. You learn to read a spill site the way a mechanic reads an engine. Which vapors are heavier than air and pooling in the low ground, which containers are bulging and about to fail, which colors on a placard mean run, and which mean you have 30 seconds to think. Wind direction is not a suggestion. You check it before every approach, and if it shifts wrong mid-response, you're pulling your whole team back, because a vapor cloud doesn't care how close you already got. A tech on a crew 2 counties over didn't pull back fast enough last spring. A tank ruptured, the cloud shifted, and he was inside it before anyone could call retreat. 90 seconds. That's how long it took before his own team dragged him out by the suit straps, already down, already not breathing right. You start running wind checks out loud after you hear that story. Everybody does. Nobody talks about why your hands shake a little on your days off. Chronic low-level exposure builds up quiet, and the doctors doing your annual blood panel never quite say it's fine. They just say keep coming back. You start carrying your own dosimeter badge, separate from the company-issued one, checking the readings yourself every night instead of waiting for the monthly report, a habit that started as anxiety and became just how you operate now. Industrial accidents spike as aging infrastructure fails faster than anyone can inspect it. 4-hour calls become 12. You're suiting up before sunrise and not stripping the last layer off until the streetlights are already on. Your girlfriend stops asking why there are respirator marks pressed into your face every night, because the answer is always the same. 6, 8, 10 hours in a full face mask, and no amount of lotion makes the lines go away by morning. You buy your own personal air monitor with your first real paycheck, rated well above what the job requires, because in a live chemical environment, you trust your own gear or you trust nothing at all. A rookie on the crew freezes at the edge of a containment zone on his 4th real call, boots planted, refusing to cross the tape. You talk him through it for 10 minutes because you remember exactly what that freeze feels like, and yelling never once fixed it. Your hands ache constantly now from the gloves, the decon scrubbing, the grip strength it takes to work in a suit for hours. You're 23. The senior techs tell you it never fully stops. You start noticing the same dispatcher's voice at 3 in the morning, the same fire captains who nod at you now instead of eyeing the moon suit like you're the danger. People who've learned you're the one who makes the scene safe enough for everyone else to do their jobs. You start keeping a spare set of clothes in your truck permanently, because you never know if today's call ends with you needing a full decon shower before you're allowed to drive home to your own family. Level 3. Environmental Remediation and Emergency Response Technician, 28 years old, $45 an hour. You get pulled into your first multi-agency response, a chemical fire at a plastics plant. Your crew working alongside 3 other companies, fire department and county hazmat. Everyone reading the same air data and only half of them trusting it. Now you're the one other technicians look to on scene. You read the air monitor data personally. You check every seal before anyone enters a hot zone. And you're the one who calls a full stop when the numbers don't add up, even with the plant manager standing there checking his watch. A secondary containment tank fails without warning at a chemical plant. Just a hairline crack, just enough for the whole site to shift from routine cleanup to full emergency in under a minute. Your body locks rigid, and for one full second you hear nothing except your own pulse in your ears. One crack. That's the gap between a normal Thursday and a call that changes what your family believes is safe forever. You personally retest every containment barrier after that, on every site, before every entry. Your crew thinks you're overly cautious. You don't explain. They'll understand eventually, or they won't, but nobody's getting hurt on your watch. Cross-contamination becomes a real conversation now. Decon procedures that used to take 10 minutes start taking 30. Non-negotiable. No exceptions. Because one misstep at decon can follow a tech home to his own family. You get your hazardous materials technician certification, your OSHA HazWhopper 40-hour card, and your radiological monitoring certification all in the same year. The laminated cards in your wallet outnumber the cash in it. Your lungs carry a permanent tightness now. Not an injury, just accumulation. 9 years of respirators and decon showers and chemical air, call after call, site after site. The body keeps a receipt for everything. A newer tech on a neighboring crew asks you to walk him through his first radiological monitoring assignment, and you realize somewhere in the last 9 years you became the guy people ask, not the guy who's asking. You start double-signing every containment plan with a second tech before anyone enters a hot zone, your own name and theirs, both on the sheet, both accountable if the readings were never actually double-checked. You get asked to consult on a chemical fire at a plant 3 states away, flown in specifically because your name is on the short list of technicians who've never had a containment breach on their watch. Level 4, Emergency Response Team Lead, 34 years old, $85,000 a year. Now you're overseeing 4 response teams across a whole metro region. You don't suit up for every call yourself anymore, but you still go out once a week, partly to inspect, mostly because you don't trust anyone's readings the way you trust your own. You sign off on every response plan, every containment strategy, every incident report that crosses your desk. Your name is on every form that says this site is safe to re-enter, and your name is on every form if it isn't. A 22-year-old on your B team enters a hot zone 4 minutes before his air monitor calibration check clears. It reads safe. It gets lucky. You don't sleep that night, and by morning you've rewritten the pre-entry protocol for every team you run. The stress has moved from your hands to your jaw. You're grinding your teeth in your sleep. Your dentist points it out before you even notice it yourself. You get the call every team lead dreads on a Friday afternoon. One of your techs collapsed mid-response. Respirator seal held, but a valve failed. Nobody had flagged on the pre-check. He's alive, but his lungs took real damage. You start every morning briefing now with the same line. The one your own first supervisor told you 15 years ago. The suit doesn't care how experienced you are, and watch which new faces actually take it seriously. You visit him that weekend, and he says the exact same thing every injured tech says. I checked the seal. It felt fine. You implement mandatory dual pre-checks on every valve after that. It adds 15 minutes to every suit-up. Nobody complains, not once. Your wife finds you sitting in the driveway at midnight, engine off, staring at the garage door. You tell her you're fine. She knows you're not, but she also knows you'll go check a containment site again tomorrow, because that's who you are now. What if that valve had held one more shift, long enough to be caught on a routine check instead? A 15-minute delay against a damaged lung. That's the math you run in your head at 2 a.m, and it never comes out clean. You start requiring every team lead under you to physically walk the perimeter with the junior tech before any hot zone entry, not trusting a radio call to carry the same weight as standing shoulder to shoulder in the suit. Level 5. Emergency Management Director, Radiological Response. 40 years old, $180,000 a year. Your hands are mostly clean now. Your world is response contracts, county emergency plans, coordination with the NRC and the EPA, the administrative side of a job that still sends people into moon suits every single week. You manage 40 responders across a dozen counties. Every morning starts with an incident briefing, and every evening ends with you confirming that every crew that suited up came back out clean. You sit in on a state legislative hearing about emergency response funding, testifying about what actually happens in the first 60 minutes of a chemical or radiological incident, while politicians who've never worn a respirator decide your budget for next year. A regional utility pushes a deadline, a radiological leak at a power facility, contained and cleared for a scheduled inspection in 3 days instead of the 9 your protocol requires to do it safely. You push back anyway, in a room full of executives who don't want to hear it. The deadline moves by a week. Nobody thanks you for it, but nobody gets a dose they can't take back either. Your knuckles ache in cold weather now. 22 years of gloves and decon scrubbing and gripping suit zippers presenting their bill, even though you haven't personally entered a hot zone in over 2 years. On a Sunday off, you catch yourself checking the battery on your home carbon monoxide detector twice before letting your daughter near the basement. The same habit that made you check a dosimeter 1,000 times over 20 years. You review the county's emergency liability coverage, and for the first time, you see the actual dollar figure a single radiological incident could cost in cleanup and claims. It's a number that makes you close the laptop and just sit there for a while. A young team lead on your newest crew skips a secondary air check because a client's standing there watching, and he doesn't want to look slow. You find out from the incident log, and the edge in your own voice when you call him surprises even you. That edge isn't anger. It's 22 years of knowing exactly what that shortcut costs in this trade. Not money, not schedule, but a person's lungs, or worse. You sit through your first federal inquiry after a minor radiological release at a site your firm cleared 5 years earlier. Your name's in the file because you signed off on the original monitoring protocol. You start keeping a short list of names in your phone. Techs you worked with who got seriously hurt or sick from long-term exposure. It's not long, but every name has a face, and you can still picture exactly where each incident happened. Your son asks what you actually do for work, and you realize you can't explain radiological containment protocols without making him picture you in danger. So you just say, I make sure dangerous things get cleaned up safely, and change the subject. You negotiate your firm's federal certification renewal, sitting across from inspectors who've read every incident report your company has ever filed, and you realize you can recite every single one of them from memory. Level 6, Owner, Disaster Response and Nuclear Emergency Contracting Firm, 47 years old, $500,000 a year. You own the company now. Contracts with 3 state emergency agencies, 2 regional utilities, and a standing retainer with a nuclear plant 2 hours from your office. You haven't personally suited up in 6 years, but you can tell which team has a problem just from the tone of a team lead's voice on the morning call. You bid on a contract to handle post-disaster hazmat cleanup after a hurricane hits a chemical corridor along the coast, sending 3 of your crews to work 16-hour days in conditions worse than anything you saw in your first 10 years. Your hands are soft again for the first time since you were 17. No more respirator marks, no more chemical burns catching on your gloves, no more cracked skin from decon showers, but your chest still tightens on high pollen days. Some things this trade put into your body 30 years ago never fully checked out. You drive past a chemical plant and a 20-year-old in a moon suit is walking a containment perimeter the exact same way you did in your first real year. He doesn't look over. He doesn't know you used to be him. He doesn't know about the crack in the tank that shifted a whole site into emergency in under a minute. He just sees a contractor's truck parked outside the fence. Last month, a technician on your oldest crew caught a failing containment seal during a routine radiological pre-check at that same nuclear plant, the exact kind of failure that put your old colleague in the hospital 11 years ago. He caught it because you trained every one of your crews to double-check every seal, every time, no exceptions. That one catch made 30 years of being paranoid about protocol worth every extra 15 minutes, every annoyed executive, every crew that thought you were overdoing it. What if that seal had held 11 years ago, the way this one didn't get the chance to? Your old colleague would still be working, probably still complaining about the gloves instead of his lungs. Your hands, under the soft, clean skin they have now, still know exactly how a suit zipper should feel when it's sealed right. A habit from 10,000 pre-checks that nobody notices unless they've done the job themselves. You still keep your old colleague's respirator in a case in your office. Cracked straps, his initials in marker on the strap. Not because you need it, but because throwing it out felt like closing a file that isn't finished. Your son, now in college, calls to say he's taking an environmental science class and wants to know what Hazmat actually stands for. And for the first time, you tell him the real story, all of it, not the shortened version you gave him at 10. 30 years, and your body kept a full, honest record of every one of them, in your lungs, in your joints, in the low, quiet tightness in your chest that faded but never fully disappeared. That's what this trade actually costs. Not just years off a calendar, real pieces of a person, traded one level at a time for a number that finally makes sense on a contract, but never fully makes sense against the list of names in your phone. And every single disaster responder on this ladder will tell you the same 2 things at once. They'd do it again, and they'd also tell their own kid to find a way to help people that doesn't involve walking into the cloud. If you want to see what every level of the next dangerous job actually costs a person, subscribe, hit like, and ring the bell, because we go up there every single time.